Hello everybody, and thank you for joining me. This is Ciara from Ciara T Designs, and today I have a video for you on the ScrapbookPal YouTube channel. So let's jump right in. So I am going to be creating an alcohol ink background, and I have a piece of 5x7 white Yupo paper here, and I just put down some 99% isopropyl alcohol. You can buy that at like a Walmart or any pharmacy. They usually have it, and you don't have to go. It should be outside of the counter of the pharmacy. You don't have to use 99%. I just find that it gives me a lot more movement. So it's totally a choice. You can use blending solution instead, but blending solution blends, obviously, and the isopropyl alcohol actually helps movement. So if you want your alcohol inks to move further on your cardstock or Yupo paper in this instance, it helps with movement as opposed to blending. Whereas see here, now I'm going to add some blending solution and it's going to create more blends in my colors. So I find that they both work beautifully together, but completely optional. So I do have the 5x7 white Yupo paper here, and then I have my blending solution, and I have Gumball and Laguna Tim Holtz alcohol inks in those awesome big bottles, the 2.0 ounce bottles that are kind of new, and that's pretty neat. I love alcohol ink backgrounds. I find that they're so fun to create. I know that they can be a bit intimidating and a bit messy, but honestly, it's a lot of fun just to play. I find this because you have very little control. Now, not to say that you can't fix something you don't like, but I think that if you pick, in this instance, two colors that I know are going to create beautiful colors together, because I know a blue shade and a pink shade will make a purple shade. So if you pick two colors that go beautifully together, you should have no issues creating some kind of a background that looks stunning. And I think that it's also, you play with it a bit, right? And you have to be kind of okay with however it comes out, but I've never made a background that I didn't think was stunning. So I think that it's just a fun way to kind of let loose and sit down and just play with some of the stuff in your stash and just have a lot of fun. I also have Foundry alloy alcohol ink in this as well, but I only add a very small amount of it simply because I find that it kind of likes to go everywhere, and it kind of just creates this very shimmery portion in the background. So I will hold it up when we get close to being done here, but and you'll be able to see it. But I just think that this is a lot of fun, and honestly, it's just playing. And if you don't like an area, you can add more ink, or you can add more alcohol, like the blending solution, or you can add some more isopropyl, or whatever you want to do until it's something that you enjoy. And then you just keep building on that until you like the outlook, the look of it at the end. I personally love when it creates kind of pockets of colors, and you can see quite a bit of that in this kind of background that I'm creating here. But again, if you don't, and you know what, you can create and then die cut this for other things. You could make leaves, or you could use this for flowers, you could, there's so many things. Or you could take one color and create a very specific look with just one shade of color. I have a tendency to bring in two, and generally an alloy, simply because I like to create a lot of pockets of color and blends of colors. So I also brought in, you can see here that I've been using the Tim Holtz blower the whole time, but I also brought in some black DecoFoil. This is just to put onto those tacky bits. They'll dry if you want to leave them to do that, but I just like the depth that the black will add. And it's not a lot, it's just a little bit, but it just adds something to the background to give those really dark bits. And here I'm going to show you that if you don't like something, you can clean it up and remove it without it being a big issue. Like, you can either use the isopropyl alcohol, which I use right there, or you bring in some blending solution and you can wipe up areas you don't like, or you don't enjoy, or you don't want in your project. I'm going to die cut this down in a little bit, because I did want a A2 size card, which is 4.25 by 5.5. But I'm just showing you here that if you don't like something on your project, that's okay. You can remove it. That is an option. So don't ever get discouraged if you don't like it, or just keep adding color and building up your layers. I think that you'll end up with something stunning if you kind of just give it a chance to shine and be beautiful. So here you can see I'm just holding it up in the light there for you. You can see all that alloy in the background. And I just have a stitched rectangle die from my stash that I'm going to use to cut out well, in this case, it's going to be a card that's an A2 size. This is slightly smaller than my A2 sized base. I wanted a little bit of a white border around it. I thought that would really add some pop to how much color there is here, to help the colors pop with a white background. And again, you could choose to make this a 5x7 card and not trim out any of it. That's absolutely an option as well. I just was aiming to make an A2 sized card, so that's kind of what I was thinking. So I just took that out of my die cutting machine there, and then I'm going to use it on the background. And then we're going to come up with a cool way to add a sentiment. So it did honestly take me a minute to decide how I wanted to add a sentiment, or if I wanted to add a sentiment. So I'm going to use this die. It's an Altenew die. It's a linear Crossroads. And I'm going to create something to put my sentiment on top of. I didn't want to cover up much of the background. So you can see on the panel right there, I've already cut it out once in white, and I'm going to cut it out again in vellum. I wasn't sure what I wanted, so I cut it out in both. And I'll save the one that I don't use for another project later, but I cut it out in both vellum and in white cardstock. And in the end, I do choose to go with the white, but I wanted some options because I wasn't sure quite what I wanted, and I wasn't trying to cover up much of the background, although this die is quite thin and quite delicate, that it's just such a cool die. I think it's very versatile and can add a lot of interest to your background. But I did cut it out in vellum, and here you can see I'm trying to remove it from the die, and it removed beautifully. And then I'm just gonna kind of go between the two. At one point I thought maybe I would kind of adhere them together and maybe have it be like a double, just kind of offset, and all of those options could work. There's no right or wrong way to do this, or maybe flip it around and adhere it on top. In the end though, I decided to go with just the white because I felt like it pulled in the border of the background better. So I am going to go with the white one, and I'll save the vellum one for another project later. And then I have some Berry Art glue, which I've been loving for this precision tip. That's just such a great tip, and you're going to see it when we go to use it on the Crossroads die, because it's so thin that it's just going to create just great little bits of glue to adhere on. And I did have this just hang a little bit off of the panel, the alcohol inked panel, because I think that it kind of adds a little more interest. So you're going to see here when I adhere it down that I do adhere it slightly. It's obviously to the bottom corner there, but it is going to hang slightly off of the panel, still within the base because I don't want to trim it down, but it's going to just kind of adhere slightly off of the panel, and then we're just going to keep building on that. So I think that it just turned out really stunning. And the sentiment that I chose to use was just a sentiment strip out of my stash. It took me a little bit to kind of figure out what I wanted to put on this. And originally I was thinking about not adding in a sentiment until I knew what I wanted to do with it. Because I mean, you could make this anything. It could be a birthday card. It could be a thinking of you card. It could be a sympathy card. It could be anything really. And it's just, I chose in the end to do this little sentiment strip here that says, I believe, sending you a paper hug, just because I thought that that was really cute and kind of went well with this design because it was quite thin and it didn't take a lot of focus from the card, because I think the background is really the star of the show, and then that die cut just kind of adds a little bit of interest to it. And so I'm just going to hold it up here so you guys can see what it turned out to look like. I think it turned out pretty great, and I'd love to know what you guys think. Leave us a like, leave us a comment, consider subscribing if you haven't already. There's a lot of amazing creators on this team, and I think that you really enjoy what they have to offer. Thank you so much, guys, and I'll see you again soon. Bye-bye for now.